Call to order the St. Joseph City Council meeting of Monday, October 3rd. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I keep thinking of the Proud Boys or something like that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag Item 2, public comments. Anyone wishing to speak to the council on items not on the agenda, please step forward. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any issues or concerns, anyone? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 4, consent.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and second on consent agenda. Any issues or concerns there? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 5, special event. Kayla?
Yes, good evening. Danny Lindner with the College of St. Benedict submitted a special event application for Central Minnesota Take Back the Night event to be held on October 13th. As part of the request, event organizers are requesting the closure of College Avenue from Minnesota Street to the south entrance of CSB, as well as Minnesota Street going west to the north entrance. The march would start at 7 p.m. and would be about a half hour, they thought, for them to go along College and along Minnesota. The march starts and ends on campus, and the application has been reviewed by the various departments and no issues were indicated. So the request before you tonight is to approve the street closure for the Central Minnesota Take Back the Night event on October 13th.
Very good. Counselors? Kevin?
So what departments review this application?
Public Works, Police, and Fire.
Okay. Public Works? What were your thoughts when you reviewed it?
I had no issues, Councilman.
Fire's not here. Police?
No issues.
What day of the week is it? Is it Thursday?
Yeah.
Thursday?
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I do have issues.
Okay.
And so I'll preface my comments by saying I don't support, and I wish someone from St. Ben's or from that task force was here. I'll preface my comments,
Here she comes.
maybe this is
Here she comes.
this
We're talking
Danny?
about you already.
Is this Danny? This is Danny. Okay. So, Danny, as background, our proficient mayor has gotten through the agenda so quick, we're on number 5 now, which is your ask
There was
in a
no
permit.
time on that, so.
And so,
Danny, why don't you come to the microphone?
yeah,
And. Okay,
It's not a whole lot different than that, but it's based on,
there. Yeah.
so anyway, before you get to the podium, just what I was starting to say is Public Works had no issues with it. The police department had no issues with it. The fire department, which reviews this, isn't here. I do have issues with, this is Kevin Klusner, council member, with closing down the street. But I'm gonna preface that by saying I fully support the mission
Right.
of Take Back the Night. Very involved with Anna Marie's Alliance. My wife and I, we support that organization financially, go to the breakfast every year to see what the impact that has. So my opposition to closing the street down has nothing to do with the mission of the organization.
I understand.
200 people, closing it down when it's dark. The intersections that Public Works or police would have to somehow barricade, someone coming north on College Avenue and then, oh, I can't go down here, it's closed, I gotta turn off on Field Street, snake around, can't get back on Minnesota. So from my perspective, it doesn't make sense to close the street down from the standpoint of resources that we would need and just the practicality of citizens wanting to move around town, even though it's only an hour.
Yeah, right.
And so there are really nice sidewalks on the east and west side of College that 200 people could split up and be able to do the same type of marching and make your statement. So that's why I'm not in favor of approving the permit, and I'm open to having my mind changed.
I would like to share, I have been a part of Take Back the Night with St. Cloud. And they do quite a long walk. I think every time that I have been in it and experienced it, there hasn't been any negative cognizance with it. It's being able to give the example of why we walk down the middle of the road.
Right.
It's not walking down the sides. It's the whole purpose of why we walk down that middle is to make people know and notice what and why they are doing there. And I believe that your group would be respectful in that manner and being able to, and usually it doesn't take a full hour, depending on.
Right.
And so my question to Dwight or Ryan is how would you close that road down if we're moving in that process? So are you gonna be following it? What kind of support would you be giving that system then?
I guess I'd probably go first by saying, if we're only looking at an hour, it probably wouldn't pay to have Public Works bring out barricades. It'd be easier to have a squad car. It probably wouldn't be very responsible not to have a vehicle there because somebody might just become irate enough where they're just gonna run everybody over. We've seen this around the country and around the world, so we're gonna have to have some kind of visual protection, and no different, and I hate to bring this all together, but no different than people that had, during COVID, had birthday parties where they wanted a squad car to drive through in front of people's houses. I would always preference that by saying, if we have a squad car available, we'll sure drive by somebody's birthday party. I don't think we're gonna have an option in this particular case because we may only have 1 or 2 officers working that night. And if they're on a domestic or a crash or a medical, we're gonna have to dedicate a specific officer that's assigned that cannot be called away during the time of this march. Or if that's where the council doesn't want us to do, we would have to have Public Works put barricades out. Somebody's gonna have to place those barricades and then take them down in an hour. So one way or the other, no different than if we do our Joetown Rocks or Mill Street Arts Festival, we have to somehow have some kind of control so that somebody doesn't get run over.
So I got a question to Councilman Bieniek. I wasn't inferring that the marches were gonna be disrespectful.
No, but some people do take it that way. I'm not saying that you are. I'm not
Okay.
saying you are. Some people do take it that way. I'm just being honest. But
It's
no, I
harvest
know.
time, there's tractors going up and down College Avenue at that time of the night, and I just think it's, from a safety issue, first of all, again, I think expending the resources and time isn't, it'd be different if it was like 2,000 people are gonna march. And I'm not trying to belittle 200 people marching, but I think the sidewalks, why can't the sidewalks send the same message?
Because you're telling them to move away from their purpose, and these people have been abused enough. And that's what there's, I could be wrong, Danny, if I'm saying it correctly or not. It's being able to say, I have a voice and I have a purpose here. And that's what I support in that, is they've been through enough and they're wanting to put the message out there. So please correct me, Danny, if I'm wrong.
No, I'm asking you,
Yeah.
council person.
No, I wanna
where-
make sure I'm
where-
covering it.
Where have you marched? Where does the march?
St. Cloud.
Where in St. Cloud?
Where's the
They've,
march?
it's been different areas of St. Cloud. So
Like
the
where?
sexual assault center came down to the river, is that called the Riverside by the,
Yeah, through the years, if I can just add a
Yeah.
little bit of that
Thank you.
history. Yeah, no problem. Through the years, they've had varying routes depending on who was on the planning committee, other things that might be going on around town, construction, et cetera. But it is, typically they have, in St. Cloud, they have blocked the streets and they march like Fifth Avenue down, they like to get down around the bar area
Okay.
downtown.
So
And
it's been on
they-
the streets?
Correct.
It's not just going around Lake George on the trail?
No, they actually
Okay.
have barricaded streets and
Okay.
it's this concept of, taking to the streets, I
Yep.
guess is kind of that, yeah.
The 13th is on what, Thursday?
Thursday.
Yep.
Busy time of the year, of the week. You know, I mean, it's just
Busier than Saturday?
busier than Mondays.
And the other thing I'd add is this is the event that normally would take place in St. Cloud,
Right.
but it's happening here this year because they weren't able to coordinate it in St. Cloud this year. So it's the same event, it's just a different location this year, so.
Chief, how do we, when they have the Memorial Day Parade, how does that coordinate? Because they go from the Legion down the street to the cemetery. They come out of church.
Legion and then go to the
Yep.
cemetery.
And they go down Minnesota all the way to college and,
Yep, and we usually have an officer follow, and it lasts, probably 15 minutes or so. I mean, it doesn't pay to bring out barricades for that amount of time as well, but for their safety as well, we usually have an officer stand by.
do you position somebody at like Minnesota College as well?
College of Minnesota, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I think, I'm not,
And I know Memorial Day is Monday, and it's a holiday, there's not as
Right.
much traffic as there would be on this night, but I'm just curious how
Yep.
we manage that. It's similar, not identical, but similar.
And we know that this is a big ask, so I just want you to know coming into this, I'm very mindful of that. And we understand the answer may very well be no, and we're okay with that too. But we didn't know if we didn't ask. And
Right, no.
we're also open to modification if for some reason, where this specific, this altered map route kind of came from was after further conversation with Darren at Campus Security at St. Ben's. So,
I don't see a difference.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the person that's coming north on College from Woodcrest, and they want to go to the freeway, or, it'd be different. If they want to go back into St. Cloud, they can just take a right on Field Street and snake their way through. It's just, I'm just think of that.
College Avenue, you mean, right?
And I would say the
Okay.
same thing logistically. If you're coming north on 121 and you hit where they're stopping, there's no way to get, you gotta wait. And if you're coming, north, if you're coming south on College and you get to Minnesota, you can't back up. There's no way to wait. So I don't know how you'd logistically control traffic before that to give them an alternate detour. Same with east on, or west on Minnesota. You get to College and they gotta wait. There's no way to skirt around. So without barricades, I don't know how you do it. Maybe,
yeah, I guess especially if they're planning on taking the entire width, it'd be different if they're only walking in one half of the lane so that you're staying tight. But if you're talking about taking up both sides of the street, the entire curb to curb, that is gonna be a little bit more of a challenge. I guess in my mind, I was thinking they were only gonna take like the
Half.
one side, but now hearing more of this here, if the idea is to take the entire width, you're probably gonna have to barricade part of that, just to make sure people don't do that.
Do you plan on doing this again next year in this space, or
probably not. Our
Okay.
goal is to maybe look at every other
different
year.
places? Okay.
Alternate, just so we can give this community an opportunity to have it a little closer to home and feel a little more part of.
Because I'm wondering if we could look at a different, with talking and saying that the uncomfortability of the evening, of course, the time, and then, of course, the Collegeville and having cars get through is maybe sitting down and being able to come up with a different route that would be a little bit more applicable then to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if the council would feel comfortable with that.
One of the, partly for convenience, because it, just having that north and
Right.
south entrance, it just made sense to do a
Yep,
circle,
do a
right?
loop.
Yep, so that was one of the other is Sal's Bar and the other, I don't know what the other establishment is.
MIDI
The Legion is
or
right there.
Legion?
Legion.
yeah.
The laundromat.
The laundromat. We want them to
Nefarious
see us,
characters in
right?
there.
While they're
Yeah.
washing their clothes, we need them to see us. So that was somewhat intentional too. That's Minnesota Street, so I don't know if there's maybe a sneak out just on Minnesota and just, we even talked about if we could only get portion of this approved, that maybe we go and then come back. We can always turn around and come back. So we have been exploring other options and are open to some suggestions.
In realizing this is a suggestion, in being able to have possibly going down Minnesota Street, so if you're coming out and then hit the sidewalk, and I realize the potency of that, but The sidewalk on Collegeville, it's a thought in the sense,
That could be in a comment, I mean, that's, I'm open to that.
I think your mission statement would be adequate if you used the sidewalk, you know, problem solved. I mean, you still have your crowd, you still have your walk, and I assume there's gonna be some type of signage or whatever to amplify that. And that whole sidewalk area is lit, so it's visible. So I think it would, you know, it would have just as much effect on the sidewalk and then actually not pose a safety problem with blockade or squad car if they're available, et cetera. Because, I mean, nowadays you never know people.
Yeah,
I mean, sidewalks might not even be safe, but I don't know.
Chief, how would you do logistically half the street? And ensure that, or Danny, maybe, if we do half the street, how would you,
Well, and the other thing you have to
Safety, 'cause
probably also take into account too is, well, when we do both, Millstream Arts Festival and the 4th of July, and they've gone through the same permit process, we tow all the vehicles within that block
Yeah.
to give them the whole width. Now, if it's only gonna last an hour, just assume that there's gonna be a half a dozen cars that you're gonna have to push you further into the street, because you're not gonna tow those vehicles. So you're probably gonna need the entire width, because they're gonna be marching probably down the middle of the road.
isn't there a state statute about parade and vehicles and something like that? I mean, like the Lions follow have to be 24-hour notice.
Yep, correct. Yep, we'd have to post it if you're gonna
If
tow vehicles.
if they wanted to,
Yep,
yeah.
correct.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. Thursday seems a little bit more of an awkward time. And I think half the street is more susceptible to safety concerns than the entire street. But then logistics come into play for the entire street.
Yeah, no,
It's a nice puzzle. John, you got any thoughts?
But you have
do.
people going one way and
Just
then you
wait.
got vehicles going the other way. That's not safe either.
John, what can you?
So tonight, what, if we were to deny this, what would your contingency plan be?
So our contingency plan is that we would take the sidewalks.
Okay.
That is our contingency plan. Yes.
Okay, again, great cause, I'm definitely in agreement, but you're right, going up College Avenue, I think, Kevin, you make a great point, of people coming that way, they don't
Yeah.
know. What's the happy medium of just blocking off Minnesota right there, just that chunk to where the entrance is, you keep that open, again, you use the sidewalks up to there, and then you have a bigger visual of Minnesota, which going from, you know, the stop sign to the entrance, 20 minutes? You know what I mean? So that might be easier to block off. You know, you only have 1, 2, call it 3 up here where you'd have to blockade. You could still keep that area open. You could use the sidewalk. Once you get to Minnesota, then you take the whole street.
Take the whole
And now you have less than a block or two to get to the entrance. And then it's a quick pickup. Just thoughts.
So in that case, you'd block off first and
Correct.
second.
Yep.
Third's
Yep.
like not really used that much, and you could
Right.
still use College of Minnesota as,
Yep, and then you could
People
still
know
use
how
that
to
at
get it, yeah.
the 4-way, but it would be, call it a 3-way now, because you
Yeah.
couldn't take a left or a
Yeah.
right, you know, but if people are still coming up there College Avenue or coming back in,
that seems to give a visual down Minnesota.
Right. because then
And
the
it's-
visual's right there,
yeah,
now you got
it's in the
businesses, it's
area
because
lighter.
you
we
want it
were
in front of the
hoping to-
businesses
Right,
anyways.
in, you know, front of the colleges, you know, the school up there, but I think that would be a happy medium, that's just a suggestion.
We'd be very open to that.
That's good, John.
Yeah, that's
Those are
good.
just my thoughts, because
No.
now you're gonna be able to have College Avenue, they can still, if they're coming around that way, they're seeing
And
people,
we're
Yeah.
aware.
right? They're aware, and
We'll
then
have
you go into
people
there.
present to make sure that, you know, nobody's, you know, there's
You know, and you
people
call it,
issues.
you call it an event 7 to 8, you know, as you're kind of going there, that's your main stretch
Yeah.
on the sidewalk, but once you get there, that's what I'm saying, 20 minutes, 25 minutes,
Yeah.
that's less of a shutdown, at least in one street, and now we're still getting hopefully the message across where you can take the whole street and into the sidewalks.
Absolutely. And I don't even think it would be that long. We won't
Right.
stop and demonstrate or anything
Right.
in the streets. It's a march.
So it might be quicker.
It might even be 10 minutes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think that solves
Yep.
the concerns that you guys have, but it also still gives them
the visibility.
the opportunity and visibility to take the whole street, at least on part of it, and not maybe disrupt some of the traffic concerns that you might have.
That's good,
Just a thought.
Councilman. That's good.
It is good.
Get into
Wanna make
Public
that-
Works or Police or something there, Mr. Hazen.
Yeah, we got right. Those are my thoughts.
Public Works, Dwight, do you think that's doable? That's,
Yeah, and I think maybe we talk to
Maybe
St.
happy
Ben
medium?
Security and see once if we can get it, no different than the 4th of July when we get sheriff explorers that help out. If St. Ben Security can also help control an intersection, that would
Yeah.
also help out as well.
Yep. Yeah, well.
But it would definitely lessen the footprint for us to have to control if we took College Avenue out of it
Right.
and only dealt with Minnesota Street.
Well, and again, having public safety even there to help, that's
Yes.
even more
Yep.
in case there's a call to you guys. So
Correct.
I move for the street closure of just Minnesota for the Take Back the Night event on October 13th.
Second.
motion and second, we're approving the application with the limitation that only Minnesota will be closed. College Avenue will be using street access, then back into the entrance.
Sidewalk.
Just to be clear. Sidewalk on
Sidewalk
College Avenue, excuse me, back to Minnesota and then the entrance. Questions or concerns?
I don't know
How
if
do
now
you-
is when I would ask, but we're also requesting that the permit cost be waived as a nonprofit. I don't know if I put that in there, but I can.
I would add that be part of the motion that we waive the permit cost. How much was it gonna be?
150, I believe,
Yeah.
if I was reading this correctly.
Do I need to do a rewind? Or do we?
I never figured this thing out. I got all those expenses. I don't know which one apply and which one don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
my apologies, I didn't include that.
Okay. Would we
So-
have to make a new motion?
no, he has to make make an amended motion
So I amend it per what I said.
to include only the one, or to waive the fee, and I'll second that. So the motion is now on top of us, we're gonna use College Avenue sidewalk, Minnesota Street. The fee of $150, is that correct?
Yes.
Is also waived. Other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, Dan.
I really appreciate the support, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there, will I get something that shows?
Yeah, I don't know how the,
We can email.
Yeah, I'll email you tomorrow.
okay,
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you
Yep.
very much, everyone.
thank you, Danny. Number 6, Shirley Bond.
Everybody know.
Well, good evening. So if you remember last summer, we had Tammy Umdahl here when she was presenting the bond issue that we sold this summer. She also provided the debt management study, looking at all our debts and kind of what, funding sources that we needed going forward, kind of help us with some of the budget numbers. Northland Security has also went back and looked at our debts for the possibility of refundings, including advanced refundings or current refundings, meaning a current refunding is the call date is in 2022, advanced is sometime in the future. There's state statutes on when you can call a bond, advance refund a bond. We do not have any bonds that would qualify for the advanced refunding, but she did bring to light 3 bonds that could do a current refunding if council so choose. In doing that, we would save some interest cost, obviously, for the remaining life of those bonds. And then also looking at like next year's levy could be reduced, debt levies could be reduced because now they're paid off. Out of the 3, I'm recommending the 2010B and the 2015A bonds to be called. We would need some residual funds out of the Fund 390, which is a debt service relief fund. So when these bonds paid off, if there's still some special assessments to be paid on the debts, they go back in, that money goes back into the 390 fund. So it kind of replenishes itself. But then we also don't have the levy for next year for those 2 bonds. The 3rd bond, the 27B bond, we would need $190,000 for that to call early out of the 390 fund. And I'm feeling like that's just a little aggressive for that fund, looking at other projects that we have coming from that fund currently. So my recommendation is to use the 390 fund for reserves that we needed for the 2010B and the 2015A. If council would support that, we can come back with the resolutions at the next meeting for approval. So I just wanted to kind of get your feedback on that so I can get back to Tammy.
Counselors? Questions or concerns?
Why would we not do this?
Yeah, I know, that's my only question too. Why wouldn't we do this?
You're having to just spend down a little bit of reserves, but again, it's replenishing itself pretty darn quick, and you're saving
Yeah.
some interest. Some of our interest rates, our
Yeah.
interest earnings now are a little bit above what those bond rates were, but not by much. And again, it also has some indirect benefits of not having that debt levy next year for these debts.
So the long-term effect is we save interest and we don't have long-term debt, right?
Yeah, It's always good to pay down debt.
Yeah,
Right, and if you remember too, from our bond rating this summer, one of the things that they highlighted that they increase our score for is because we are pretty aggressive in paying down our debt. Even though we have a high liability, we are paying it down within, over 80% within 10 years. So it definitely looks favorable when we do go through those bond ratings.
Well, I guess you're not looking for a motion, just, I would think we provide direction to bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
will do.
very good. Thanks,
Thank you.
Cory. Item 7, city admin recruitment.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. So at your meeting on September 19th, you approved me obtaining proposals for administrator recruitment process with AME and GovHR. So in your packet, those proposals were included. They're very similar. The big difference is the cost. And you'll see that, you know, AME is a small firm, one-person firm. I mean, that's the difference. And the other firm, GovHR, is a big firm. So you're gonna see that cost difference related to that. Otherwise, they both are highly recommended consultants. So tonight I am looking for your consideration, and if you are ready to make that decision, to approve one of those consultants. So just for clarification purposes, for AME, I had put down in the staff memo, 10,000, so I didn't include plus expenses, which were not to exceed 3,500, so really look at that as 13,500 to 23,500.
I was able to, I called both of them, just wanted to see their logistics on and how, and both of them are really great companies that I thought. And the biggest thing that I didn't realize that we probably need to keep in mind when we're looking at this is that if we do have a candidate that's out of state, because they both do actually do national searching, is that we would flip that bill. However, both of them said that they would do a virtual first, interview first, and if we really needed to see them in person, then we would have to pay the flight and the travel for that person, if they're out of state.
Can we back up a little bit?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed it in the consent agenda. Where are we at on the interim city administrator?
So at your meeting, was it last Monday or Tuesday? The days, mixing the days up. You,
Work session last week.
yeah, last Monday, you had done those interviews and had selected Jeff O'Neill, and that
Yeah.
offer was made to him. So he is scheduled to start on October 24th. So that's moving along, and then this is the separate process to go through
So you
recruitment.
did accept.
Did he accept the initial offer,
No.
or was there any?
You had authorized me to make an offer when
For
going
the
up,
initial
for
one, yeah.
initial, and then up to a certain amount, so
Right.
that's what I did. So he ended up going to what he had requested, which is
Oh,
what the
okay,
council
that's- was my
allowed me to
question.
do.
Yeah, I know.
Which is fine, I think that would be a logical thing to know in these meetings, like where are we at on that step? So, okay.
I would move to go with GovHR. I think they would give us better service and probably find a better candidate for a long term.
I second.
Motion and second to accept GovHR, and is it Charlene you'd be dealing with?
Correct.
Okay,
Charlene Stevens.
okay. Questions or concerns? Counselors? Motion,
I was just, when I was speaking with both of them, as much as they were both, I did lean towards, Anita. She had more knowledge of this area and was much more willing to, cheaper too, but much more willing to be able to put that time in with us. That's just what I had heard from her.
motion and second, accept GovHR proposal. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion prevails 4-1. Item 8, union negotiation.
Yeah, so as you all are aware, both union contracts, LELS and AFSCME, are up at the end of this year. So the negotiations need to start. We actually have tentatively, well, it's on the calendar, but we can certainly adjust that, a meeting set up with LELS on October 24th at 9 a.m. And so that would be, Lori will, normally it's your administrator, but given that the timing with the interim starting and the fact that she is familiar with obviously the finance side of it, benefits and so forth, I would recommend that Lori sit in on those negotiations. And then it would be Brandon Fitzsimmons with Flattery and Hood. He serves on that committee as well. And then it would be 2 council members. So tonight the ask is to appoint and approve who you want, those 2 council members, and mayor to sit on the committee.
I'd like to be involved in that. I mean, I've been experienced and it's gonna be a tough negotiation this year, or this time.
Yeah, I was gonna actually nominate you, Bob, and you, John. John's dealt with union contracts at where he works, and I know you have tons of experience. I could do it, but I think John will.
Yeah, I would
Take
like
over
to
that
do
role.
it too with just
So my,
experience, but
really, my nomination would be Bob and John to carry on, and I don't get them
Have there
on the
been
meeting
any
schedule.
communications yet, or?
I
Yeah,
think
so both of
we
them put their,
that-
their request and the intent to negotiate, both unions did.
Intention to
And
negotiate.
Yeah, and so I've been in close contact with Brandon Fitzsimmons as well in regards to that. And of
Okay.
course, the compensation study's underway and kind of, we're nearing the end with that, so it's, the
Yeah.
timing is
How about
right.
how about the union reps? I mean, historically,
Yep,
we don't visit this till March
Well, we
in our
start,
negotiation
No.
year. You
no,
know,
we,
it's always,
we,
it's a
no,
lot
we
of.
start in October, and they may lag till
Yeah.
March, but
Yeah.
it starts now.
yes.
Yeah.
And then just to let you know too, that, that we'll need some flexibility. Obviously, we'll put dates out there. I gave you the first date, October 24th, starting at 9 a.m. So, there'll be some flexibility. It'll be more of your day meetings, and we're working with those representatives and our attorney. So plan on it being more of a daytime.
that might be hard.
Kelly, you okay with that, with these 2?
No, but here's my
Well, I was just
question.
asking him, can he do
It gets pretty
days?
difficult for me with days because I
Right, I was
full-time
just gonna
job.
add to that from past experience, day is convenient for the 2 sides, but it's not convenient for the other side. So, I mean, I'd like to switch that around where, evenings would be better because it's less convenient because during days, the people involved take off work. So it's costly too. So to be on the even side, I mean, I'm requesting a nighttime. I know Bradley Fitzsimmons will probably be a little bit more, I mean, no, it should be the same amount of money.
I don't know. That's the first time.
Yeah, I think it'll be, I can
But it's
certainly bring that to him. I think it's gonna be more challenging, not only
At your
for
work. Okay, sorry.
for Brandon Fitzsimmons, but also for the union representatives and even the stewards. I think it actually is gonna be
Well,
more
we can always
challenging.
do Zoom.
Who,
Well, the last time we did this, 3 years ago, we did all night except one day. And the final day was when we had, like, LELS in the same room with us, or AFSCME in the same room with us. So most of the negotiations occur after 4 o'clock or better. I mean, that was experience last time. I don't know why
Yeah, I
we couldn't
wasn't involved
accomplish that
last
again.
time.
I certainly can bring that back to Brandon
I don't think-
and the reps.
I think Brandon will be very,
Yeah,
and
because
I think the last time we did this, we actually
can
did,
handle one
did
day,
several
couldn't you,
Zoom
Joe?
Yeah,
meetings.
it just, yeah, it's,
I'm serious, we did either Zoom or phone conference meetings at the same time, because Annie had some conflicts at that time. So,
I just know personally, don't get me wrong, I would love to be on the negotiation committees,
Yep.
but I do have a full-time job that
Yep.
I am bound by and determined to do. Don't get me wrong, I would love to do that, but it gets pretty sticky,
Well,
at least for
Can you
myself.
do at least one day?
Again,
let's-
I
let's-
You don't
I
know?
don't know,
Okay,
because that's during our busiest time of where I work.
okay.
Well, I move to accept the mayor's recommendation for Councilman Hazen and Councilman Loso. And if such that the negotiations start, Councilman Hazen can't feel he can serve, then he'll go back to
figure
the
out.
mayor for an alternate.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
can I get a second on that?
Are you okay with that, Rick?
Yeah, I'd really rather have somebody new doing this, I really would.
And again, I'm not opposed to it, it all just depends on the dates and the times, and then my work
wanna do
schedule.
Kevin,
So,
what's your thoughts?
I said, I've
Well,
done it,
well,
and I think,
I move that we accept the mayor's recommendation.
we'll go
Okay,
from
I was
there.
just, because
Continue.
Mayor is saying he'd like somebody new, so that's.
well,
good.
again, if John can't, then I think we come back to the table, but
Okay.
I really want somebody to expose to
Yeah.
this.
Yes,
Would you
Motion
want
and
to name,
second.
would you want to name an alternate now with your motion, just in the event that it can't change, we can still move forward with meetings?
Right,
I would
and
recommend
scheduling?
that, otherwise the next meeting is October
no.
17th, and we're getting close to that. We need to
Yeah.
get schedules squared away.
You know, what are you looking at me? The alternate's gonna be Nick or you. I don't,
well,
wa-
why
Okay.
not you?
I don't wanna do it.
Okay,
John wants to do
Would
it,
you-
I
I
don't
don't
wanna do
mind
it.
learning,
Yeah,
as long as I have the support, then I
Yeah.
can
I-
request.
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
yeah.
so let's
Like
make
to be
Kelly
able-
the alternative if John can, okay?
Okay.
Motion and second, Bob and John can't, Kelly.
Perfect.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain. I don't vote for myself, ever.
Any abstains?
Never have, never will.
Okay, Bob abstained, so it's 401. Gee. Item, what are we on here? 9, ordinances, sorry, Park Board.
Yeah, so at your last meeting, you directed staff to bring back amendments to the park board ordinance. It was, the main reason was to reduce the number of voting members from 6 to 5, the total members from 7 to 6, because we have a council liaison that also sits on there that does not vote. I also took the opportunity, as you, if you recall, I had said this is an opportunity to look at other potential amendments to that park board ordinance. So in there, it not only reduces the total numbers and also voting members, but it also cleans up some language in regards to duties and responsibilities. And on the last page there, you'll see some limitations that have been, we're recommending that those be removed. And then there's added language on attendance and also clarification on quorum, so there's no confusion around that. So with that, I'm looking for direction, but ultimately, if you're agreeable, a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-008, amending ordinance 203 Park Board. And then the second motion that we would need this evening is for the summary publication.
Bob,
Number one, I got a problem with this. Number one, who did all the elimination of language?
I
Staff
drafted
did.
it,
Okay, you drafted it, okay.
yes.
You know, and I'm very familiar with Park Board and Park Commission, so I'm gonna give you a little history on this. Way back in the day of, you know, before the pioneers were here, there was a Park Commission.
that's right.
Okay, back in the days of the Park Commission, about the same thing that's going on now. You know, people show up, people don't, but it was just a group of people that sat around and talked and really didn't have any authority to do anything. Okay, and now it's a park board. Okay, back in the 90s, 91, 92 actually, when I was an advocate for the parks, I brought this forth to the city council at that time and changed the terminology from park board to park commission. And by statute, a park commission has more authority Okay, so we went through that. We didn't give that park board at that time full monetary say-so. We left it at a $3,000 limit that they could spend on their own. And any other project after that, they would need council approval. And this takes away all that. So this makes it a park commission and no more longer a park board. And if the park board, I mean, if I had been on the park board, I'd be screaming left and right, because this makes it a group that's always got to go to the, for a second person to ask if they can do something. As being a park board, they can do it. They have some say-so about the parks and the directions of the parks. And I think that the people that are involved personally in the park situation on the board should have a say-so. They're the ones that would look at the parks and listen to the people. So I'm against this rewrite for that reason. It pulls everything. And is there any park board input on this?
It was, should have been shared with them. I know I shared it with Public Works and with Rhonda
Right.
as well.
This
So we
takes
certainly can bring it back to
This
them.
takes everything away from them and makes them just a group of people that get together, and they gotta go basically beg everybody else to get it done.
So what you're saying is you want that 3,000 so that this
Well, what it
section,
is now, I mean, if
that's what I'm hearing, the 3,000.
all of these
so
cross-outs,
this- right,
you're
yeah, at the
taking
end.
away all
Yeah.
discretionary authority of a park board, you're making it into a park commission.
If you
So you're
can't,
reversing what happened, and it was a big fight back in 91, 92. You wouldn't believe, you had to be there to really believe what the heck went on back in those days.
like subdivision 2, where the park board shall not, or shall assert control and authority over set-aside property for park purposes, you're gonna remove that authority, which I think is bad.
Which number are you on, Mayor?
203.5 subdivision 2, control and authority over property set aside for park purposes. Why would they not want to be a authority over park purposes? Shall not solicit contributions from other organizations. Why would you not want them to do that?
And certainly the intent was is that they not prohibit them from that, but not require it. But if you want that added in, if that's a consensus, we can keep that in there.
Well,
Well,
and-
then change the word from shall to may. I mean,
there you go.
we want them to have some authority over the control of the parks and facilities. We really do.
Well, and my question is too, can they take in money? So the question of, let's say, if she wants to, the class is kind of like District 742 does, being able to set classes and things like that. I don't know if this would fall under that or not. Do you know where I'm going with this? Yeah. And so to be able to handle that and then instead of having that person do it themselves, and then that way the park board can take on some money. Do you know what I'm saying? So it'd be a percent, whether it's 10% or 20%, but then that can go to the park board and we can revenue some money for the
Well, the
park board.
does have a budget.
They have a budget, but we can give, Rhonda's knocking it out of the park here, you know what I mean? She's doing some great stuff. And to be able to give her a little bit more revenue, why not conversate about that? If she can take care of some classes coming in, let's say as example, her yoga class. If she handles that and takes on the attendance and they pay her, then she gets to tell that teacher, okay, because I helped you out with this, we will keep 10% and you will take 90%. And
And I think the park board is in a break-even kind of, when it
Right.
comes to activities, they're in a break-even kind of mode right now.
But why not, if we have a chance to give her a little bit more money to be able to accommodate for the baseball that, Al wants to take over and other things that she wants to cultivate and grow, is it bad asking for that? I think if she's willing to do that, and since we're talking about the park and board,
But then it's up to her to ask for that.
Yeah, I think she asked for donations already. She gets T-shirts, she gets,
Yeah.
signs, she gets books, whatever else she does an awful lot of that already. She doesn't necessarily ask for money, she doesn't ask
Right.
for increased fees to go back into the park fund. I think that's kind of a slippery slope myself, but I'd watch stuff like that. because it's tougher to track that, I think, but that's just me. I think Ryan should have an input to say when, somewhere in here, I don't know, section, I don't know, so many sections have been knocked out and in here again, but order park-related work to be performed. I think it's coordinate park-related work to be performed with Public Works, not order it. I mean, there's no doubt Ryan goes to these meetings and knows what has to be done in the facilities really well, but I think it's a coordination between Public Works and Park Board. Because Park Board makes their facilities list or their priorities list, and it's probably up to Ryan or whomever to carry out that. So I kind of agree with Bob. I don't think you should remove the authority that they have today. I think you should tweak it so they continue with the authority and make it more lenient so that they can plan for this kind of authority. Same with, the limitations they can
Well,
spend. or not.
if you read the statute and the authority that a park board has, that's why it was set up that way.
Yeah.
I mean, they have complete authority, statutory authority on the parks, except for the money part. They got a limit. They can't just,
And-
roguely go out and spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They gotta, come through the council.
So,
So
can
do-
I-
The only one, yeah, sorry, I was gonna say, the only one I'm really in favor for is reducing the number of members.
That's what I was.
can I,
Yeah.
Everything else I
So
want
have
reworked.
we-
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
have we reduced the number of members,
We
but
will
is this on
this.
the table?
This
That-
is on
that's
here
on
too.
tape.
Okay,
So
so
that's
there's
on the
so
first
much going on about this. I'm with you on, let's retain the authority
Yeah.
that the park board has. And then I would suggest we just table this
Okay.
whole thing for our next city administrator.
Okay,
I still think we should pass the ordinance for
members'
the
authorities.
members, yes.
Okay,
The
then let's
members-
do that part,
yes.
but not do the rest of it.
I
Yeah,
agree.
because
we
I
can-
think that's
then
what
we
we
can
kind of
sort out the
originally talked
details.
about, was the
Yeah.
members too, to reduce for the
Yeah.
voting.
Right.
So
And
again,
Therese, good work on this,
Yeah.
but I think this is something we can do some of it, or this one thing,
And-
and then kick the can down the road for the next city administrator to help coordinate.
I
I
think
mean,
you
this
take,
just kind of rubs me the wrong way,
No,
just
we get
because
it.
of board
Yeah,
and
you lived that
commission,
part.
and I had
You
to
lived
fight
it.
like hell back when.
yeah.
Yeah.
You were.
I was on with you, so I know what you went through, that way back then. I was gonna say, Kelly, you could take this back to them and maybe say, what
would you like
authority
to-
do you want us to have? I mean,
Okay.
where do we need to be as we grow the Parks Department?
And have a copy of the statute there that
Yeah.
basically tells them.
Well, I think the more trails we have, the more facilities we have, as we build out East Park and some of the
Yeah.
other activities, I mean, it's only gonna grow. I think that's our
Yeah.
goal here,
Well,
to kinda
what I
grow
would
that.
suggest with you, Mayor, is that let her, Kayla, Administrator and Kayla, to be able to put that on our next board, Park Board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my motion is to approve section 203-1, subdivision 1, and 203-1, subdivision 1, where we change the number of members
From
from
7 to
7 to
6
6 and from 6 to 5.
second,
Motion and second.
Is that the right motion?
Well, it is, but
So I think what we should do is we
Wait,
should make the
wait.
motion to adopt this, deny it, and then make a new motion to do that. Because the motion on the table right now is to adopt the ordinance as a whole.
It
So
is.
you move,
So
you
just
second it,
Mayor
and
and
then you say
council,
no.
the way that Mayor Schultz made the motion is appropriate. He's just,
Okay.
he's clarifying the motion to approve the amendments, just section 2.03,
Okay, so that's,
203.1.
that first sentence, members and terms, and then also subdivision
Cool.
1. So you're not accepting the other part.
you're
so
just
you-
accepting the top. Okay,
Correct.
just making sure. I didn't know if we had to accept it and then deny it and then make a new motion. Okay.
So motion and second, accepting 203-1 members and terms, subdivision 1, changing the size of membership. Questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And so the staff will come back or actually give it to Kelly, Park Board, whatever, and we'll move on from there.
Do we have to do the second publication?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I move
Yeah.
to adopt the resolution 2022-49, direct summary publication.
And just for clarification's purposes, we'll make sure that on that summary, I would say to make sure that you just include the ordinance amendment updates the members and terms to 6 members, and just leave it at that
Okay.
and strike out the rest of it. This is not accurate.
Okay.
So is that 2249?
Is that for 2249?
Second, anyone?
Second.
Motion and second, resolution 2249, summary publication for terms and members. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item B, licensing regulation liquor thingy.
All right, so before you this evening are amendments to ordinance 701, licensing and regulation of consumption of intoxicating liquor. Earlier this year, the legislature passed a law that went into effect in May that changed certain regulations on liquor licensing and rules. The law now allows a licensed brewer that produces under 7,500 barrels of malt liquor in a year, the ability to issue it allows the city the ability to issue a license for off-sale of up to 128 ounces per customer per day. So I did include that in the ordinance, and we did have Bad Habit Brewing Company submit an application, that is in your packet as well, to be authorized to sell up to 128 ounces per day per person.
What is it currently? Is that? What
Right
it
now,
was
it's
before
limited to
that?
like growlers, so I think it's 64 ounces.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
So there's a separate application that the state provided that they have to fill out and the council would have to approve. So right now that is not in our ordinance, so I'm adding that to the ordinance.
So really, who's tracking that? You can only buy like one growler today.
Right? Okay.
Well, I'm just,
I know,
Yeah.
but
I know
that's
it's an
kind of the
ordinance,
same
but-
with,
Does the state
It has
track
to
it?
be there.
no,
so this,
they don't, we don't submit a report that he sold 2
we
growlers, 3 growlers to
don't,
Randy.
yeah.
You know, this is like bureaucratic stuff. It is.
So we're gonna rubber stamp this.
All we are doing is rubber stamp it. That's it.
Yeah,
Is malt liquor another name for beer?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yep. So in addition,
Colt 45 malt liquor.
Okay,
or
I'll
something.
move to adopt ordinance 22009, amending ordinance 701, licensing and regulation of consumption of intoxicating liquor.
Second.
Motion and second, 22009, is that what you said?
So they said,
All right, motion and second, ordinance 009. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion does carry.
I'll move on resolution 22-049, directing summary publication.
50? Should that
yep,
be-
sorry, 050.
Second, motion and second, 22050 is the summary publication for the intoxicating liquor stuff. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I'll move on motion 3 here, approve small brewer off-sale 128 ounces per day per person, license for Bad Habit Brewing Company.
Second.
Motion and second on small brewer off sale. Get your growler here today. Further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are there gonna be similar rules for our
Whiskey
cocktail?
place?
Yeah, whiskey place, do you think? Or is a separate set of rules for that too?
Yeah, so that was also part of the amendment. Too late now. No kidding.
Well, we got stuck on bad habit. I just,
7,500 barrels.
Yeah.
Of whiskey.
a whiskey?
Yeah, so there are regulations in there for, that I just
Okay.
took from
I
state
missed it. I
statute for a
apologize. I missed
microdistillery.
it.
Thank you.
Licensing will be, licensing will be the same as the other license. It'll come before you.
Just any kind of micro distillery?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
People,
Thank
they
you.
ran Alec,
10A, Elm Street Extension.
Good evening, council. I think at our last meeting between Nate and myself, we had updated the council that we've met with nearly all of the property owners along the Elm Street Extension route. I think we have one more meeting to go. But Teresa and I were talking last week in terms of the progression or the advancement of the project. Our next step really will be to collect topographic survey in the field, start the boundary right-of-way platting process, and at the same time doing some preliminary design. So staff are looking for some direction from the council if this is a project that you'd want to advance we'd bring back a proposal at the next meeting to take that next step. But I guess we wanted to be on the same page with the council with respect to the advancement of the project, and those are really the next 3 steps that we would undertake. So
That was my understanding right now, that we were gonna just continue forward.
Yep.
So I'll move to that effect for SCH to come back with a proposal to move forward with.
sounds good?
We're all in agreement? Okay? That good enough?
You're gonna make John, right?
Okay.
That works for me.
Yes.
Okay.
I got one more thing for
I don't know if
him
we
if
have a
it's
second or not.
possible.
I didn't know if you were nodding
Why
your
don't we
head.
please done?
Yeah.
Just one nod,
Randy,
yeah.
item 10B,
Um,
ATP.
Yeah, so following the conversation at your workshop meeting, we had shared some information regarding somewhat of a timely funding program that the state is actually offering or will be offering here shortly. It's called the Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program. MnDOT is just opening a letter of an intent process for this project, or for this grant program. Switch to what kind of projects does it fund? You can see the bulleted list here: new trails, sidewalks, accessible pedestrian ramps, pedestrian and cyclist lighting at intersection, improved crossings, medians, curb extensions, signing and striping. The RRFB, that second from the last bullet, is the signals that we have down by the Park and Ride and south of the I-94 bridge. So it seemed relatively timely in terms of the council's discussion at the workshop meeting relative to potential pedestrian trail improvements, sidewalk improvements. I mentioned curb extensions. It's not one that we've talked necessarily about for a while, but if the council may recall, we've had the discussion about curb extensions at the Ash Street College Avenue intersection and at First in Minnesota. So another type of project that could possibly be entertained. The grant sizes or values range between a minimum of $50,000 up to a maximum grant award of $500,000. These are construction-only grants, so the grant money goes to the bricks and mortar, building the improvement. It doesn't cover right-of-way, engineering, those soft costs that we talk about. So it is competitive. So right now, the state is seeking letters of interest from potential applicants. I think we have a little further down here, a little schedule. It is for construction between 23 and 2024. So the grant funds expire, as you can see that first bullet, in June of 2025. So they're going to be looking for candidates that can deliver a project between construction in 2023 or 2024. Here's the timeline that the program has shared. So October 14th is when the letter of intent deadline is. I did find further down in another document in their frequently asked questions, there is a scenario where they'll still allow cities to make an application without a letter of intent. So our initial concern here was, as a city, we'd have to decide rather quickly if this was a program of interest to the community, and if so, what would that scope be so that we can put together the application. But the letter of interest looked to be fairly simple. It looked like a one-pager saying the city, the type of project, and really it was giving MnDOT an opportunity to understand how many applicants are going to be out there and how many projects would they potentially have to administer. So that's a real quick synopsis but as we've had past conversations trying to match funding with your infrastructure interests, this is one that seemed to align with the recent discussions.
And Randy, I don't believe there's a match on this one, right?
Correct. So that's the other beauty. There isn't necessarily a match, which is typically rare, even when we pursue federal funds. Usually there's an 80-20 split. That's in the best case scenario. We're often undermatched. Oftentimes it's a 60-40 type arrangement or less. So this is unique in that sense that there there isn't a match requirement.
So to clarify, we're looking at to the Kennedy, right? That trail?
That's one.
And then across the highway, we were talking about Ash. So my question to you, Lori, is with those soft costs, as we're labeling them, what does that look like for us?
So initially, we would take it out of reserves, but in the future, we would reimburse it with, potential bond costs or something for our portion of whatever the infrastructure costs might be. If, say, a project is only 500,000 and we would happen to get a 100% grant for construction, we do have a couple construction projects that are finishing up now that have some residual funds in them, and we can use those residual funds towards one of these projects as well. So there is a couple different pots of money that we can tap into.
So if it's a $500,000 project and we get a grant, what's the percent? I mean, how much, if you think a 100% pie and so much is construction, how much is soft engineering and
So you might
on
be,
average?
on average, so maybe 40% is soft costs, so between bonding, financing, engineering, legal, administrative.
Okay. I was just curious about that.
One other point that I'd made, Lisa, as we're talking about potential projects, I mentioned it's competitive, and so they'll be ranked. In the frequently asked questions section, they describe project improvements address the safety risks and hazards identified, mitigate safety concerns, and boost health effects. So those are some indicators of at least some of the criteria that the state's going to be looking at as to whether or not your project proposal mitigates safety concerns, boosts health effects, so.
And you're gonna write it, or is Nate gonna write it?
Well, we haven't even got that far
Okay.
yet.
So I'm thinking that you're thinking the downtown Catholic school
That was one of
situation
them.
would qualify for that based upon what we've already been through.
Yeah, when we talk about, safety of crossings and whether it's at that intersection or Ash Street, I think there's a case to be made about mitigating a safety concern there. And that's not to say that that's more important than a pedestrian trail, I'm just saying it's another eligible
But
project.
it kind of fits the criteria, you
Yes.
know, roughly.
Would it include any of the non-block or the middle of the road crossings on College between the two?
It could. It could.
I
And
mean,
so
there are like
there-
7 between College and Field or something.
Yep. And so there, in that instance, now when we start looking at letters of support, getting Stearns County, the college, the sisters, so now you're able to demonstrate multi-agency or multi-party interest, so it becomes an even more compelling application.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
No, it's
Okay.
really for FYI this evening.
Bob had a question.
Last meeting or the meeting prior to that, I asked about capacity on the Park Terrace or whatever line you
Yep.
want to call that.
So
And
we've-
it wasn't on the agenda.
For this evening?
So I'm asking, or maybe the council,
It's not on the agenda yet.
oh, I'm not voting on it. I'm not voting on it. I'm just asking you to come with a formal proposal on that project.
And we can, that's a small enough, I think it was the last meeting I reported, that was about a $5,000 estimate. Typically,
Right.
those costs were running straight through the general engineering master agreement. So if you'd like a separate cost
I would,
agreement, I
just
can
for the
bring that back.
paperwork trail. you
Okay.
know, And for your convenience too, so you have it.
No, I'm fine with that. Like I said, otherwise, we would still track it separately, that you'd see that, but I can bring back a separate proposal.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, I had understood the direction for the last meeting to get it scheduled, so
Okay.
we're.
It's already underway.
Yep.
It's underway.
It's already in.
Now we can track it back to Bob.
I didn't get that out of that last meeting.
Anything else, Randy?
Back
That's
to
it.
you.
Very good.
Excess expense.
So I-
Back to Councilman Loso.
I just have one thing. The League of Minnesota Cities got a hold of me and would like to host a regional meeting here. I got a hold of Therese, and she's gonna make contact with the elected official from the 6 cities administrators as well. And then include about, 10-mile radius of other cities like Cold Spring, Albany, Avon, whoever else. And they did this in 2019 prior to the pandemic. I know Gary Carlson, who's the intergovernmental guy at League of Minnesota, is going to give an update. I think Pat Beatty will be there as well, and she's going to talk about THC and what they were doing at the legal side. It's October 13th, 2:30 to, I said 2:30 to 4. And I will need some confirmation on how many bodies we're going to have at some point.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I did send the invite out to the area cities and then for them to share with their elected officials. And right now, but I'll get so the RSVPs, will go right to the league directly, and then once I get that from the league, I can share that.
Oh, okay,
How
does it go?
many- It
you
goes
got
directly to
Madison?
the, yes, Madison.
Oh, okay. Excellent. That's all I have. Item 12.
I move to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. It's been great.